Hey guys, we have the gear today. Dr. Dittmar is the hard soap that we're going to be using today. 7 o'clock super stainless, and that's the green packaging. There are two different names that go with the green packaging, and this is the super stainless. I think the other one is slightly different, and it just depends on maybe Permasharp, 7 o'clock Permasharp green, or there's something like that, and that will tell you which country or city or factory or whatever it was made in. They would vary them slightly, that sort of thing. So this is a hard soap. It performs really well in my memory. It's been a while since I used it. It comes in this cool little stainless bowl, and it even has a little kind of etched writing on the little cap. It's not super high quality, but pretty decent. And so I wouldn't mind having that on my shelf, and my neighbors and friends and visitors, seeing that as cool gear. This is a Leo Frilot handle, if I'm pronouncing that name right. It's got a high mountain white brush, not from Elite Razor. And that is why I bought this brush. The handle's a little bit short for me. The grip here, this saddle part's, while I do like the way it keeps my fingers farther away from the lather and keeps them where I don't have to keep washing them during the shave, there's not a lot to grab onto. However, sometimes you find in the middle of the shave you don't really think about those kind of things, and that may end up where this handle leaves me. I can't remember. I believe these tips on this High Mountain White knot are a lot softer than the ones that I've experienced recently here with the Wipped Dog High Mountain White. It's got some fairly firm tips, still somewhat soft, but they have a little bit of scrub to them. But I believe this guy is a bit different. The Stirling High Mountain White and the Wipped Dog, and then this one. Those are the three High Mountain Whites that I have. I'm not really counting the Saponificio Veracino because they called it a High Mountain Manchurian White. And it just seems to be kind of a different caliber. And so I'm not really including that in my comparison of high mountain white knots. The Stirling, very soft. The Stirling, very soft, easy splay. I guess there might be some guys who would consider that one floppy. My version, I bought it used, and so I didn't really have as many choices with it, is the longer of the knots, the longer of the lofts. And I still really enjoy it, but I probably would enjoy the shorter loft just a little more. But it's the comfort beast. I don't think this guy is going to be as focused on plush soft comfort as the Stirling High Mountain White. And so I have a feeling what's going to happen is on the comfort end of the spectrum is going to be the Stirling. On the more firm tips end of the spectrum is going to be the Wipped Dog High Mountain White. And then in between there somewhere is likely to be this Elite. Probably not in the middle, probably a little farther toward comfort would be my guess. Carve Christopher Bradley, as I've been taunting you here now, waving it around, not talking about it quite yet. And the base plate that I've been using lately and thoroughly enjoying, looking forward to trying another blade in it, is kind of a new one. And it's the Double A open comb. It's their lowest gap open comb, and based on the two blades I've tried in it so far, they've cut very well and had a little bit of blade feel. And I could say, hey, Karve, I could see how people would reasonably request make one a little lower gap and make it really, so that we can get an even smoother experience. So yeah, let me show you what that blade looks like. 7 o'clock super stainless. Pull it back and it'll focus a little better. Someday maybe I'll get a camera or something that mounts easy and because see my cell phone here that I'm using, it's got a great screen on it, of course, because it's a smartphone, and so I can easily see what's in frame and what's not, but the selfie camera doesn't zoom in, not zoom in, but it doesn't focus well holding up close. And that's something I really enjoy, is showing stuff to you guys and give you new details. And even if I make all my hands so that it's supposed to focus. See, it just doesn't have that kind of focusing ability. So it's always just holding things back here. All right. So I have 40 milliliters of water sitting around. We've had that badger soaking for just a few minutes, not too bad. And the soap is ready to go. It hasn't been used in a while, so it is definitely dry. And one nice thing about some of these containers, at first you think about containers like this and you think, well, that's not an airtight seal. Other containers like the tobacco container and the Mitchell's wool fat, they don't have airtight seals. The lid just kind of rests. Well, there's kind of some intentionality in there, so that if you have some moisture in here, that it's not going to mold on you. If you use it every day, if you it kind of sits around for a while, then that's okay, because there's a little bit of air that can get loose, and that moisture can evaporate. Now, of course, it means that if like if you take a Mitchell's wool fat puck and you sit it around in that ceramic tub that they have, it'll crack on you as it shrinks, as the water leaves the soap. But generally, people are going to use them every once in a while, and then and I just it's a really funny thing. This soap doesn't really fit this container. You see, it's kind of a U-shaped container. The soap is more of a capsule shape if you look at it from the side, and so it's got this water cavity underneath, and it's not really, doesn't seem to be designed to fit this exactly, but it is what it is. All right, so we're going to load, and if I were using this soap every day, I bet a load time of about 15 or 20 seconds would be all I would need, but I have not used it recently at all, and so let's do something like 45 seconds and see if that works. Also, you have to think, when it's a smaller type container, you're not able to get as many tips on it. You're not able to rotate, get as many kind of large circles of rotation. And so sometimes you may need to bump up the time a little bit compared to maybe if you had a hard soap that was in a larger container. Those are just some of my ballpark tips on on making a guess at what to load at in terms of time. On this knot holds a lot of water. I'm shaking out most of it. All right, so 45 seconds, so 35 is right there. We can just start at 35, and then I have to do some math. Okay, so 25 to the next, okay, so 20 on the next minute, 25 up to the next minute, and then 20 after that. Just moderate pressure here, and we do have the suds that are going, and they'll start overflowing in just a minute. Hard water here, yes. Soap's not moving around, that's good. 15 more seconds or so. Five more for a 45-second load. And there we go. And that kind of cleaned off the puck. But I've used this maybe 3 or 4 times, and you can still see the indentation on the soap puck. Because, with these hard soaps, as I kind of use this to clean my face, you will often get just a little product is all you need to get the shave done, and so the soap will go away very slowly. I've got such a large number of soaps that I've only killed very few tubs, and that was back in my early days when I had a super small collection. And I didn't even have a collection, actually. That was back when I bought my soap at Walmart, and it was the Vanderhagen. This is a decent soap. It's all right. And for the price, especially, if I recall correctly, that was like a $6 puck or something like that. It's really pretty good. All right. Turned it over under the water. Yeah, see, I can feel that slickness. Now, I think this scent, it's very kind of standard and soapy. I think it's called Special or something. You look at the text if you're curious. But I think I was making my best guess. This is something that I received. It's really cool a while back. Every once in a while, you'll buy a lot of soaps, a box, and it's an assortment, and you'll have half of them that you like and half of them that you don't or something. But one time I bought this box of miscellaneous, and I was early on in my shaving journey, and so they were all just learning experiences, and it was really cool. And many of them were nicely performing soaps, and so they were all beneficial to me in really neat ways. And this was one of those. This was one of those soaps. So, and I got some, pucks that came with them, and it was really neat to get a bunch of things that you enjoy trying. Sometimes you get stuff and either you already have it, or it just because I guess what I'm saying is there were some hard pucks in there, and I had just happened to really enjoy those, and so you can see that the lather here pretty right away with the water that we brought in that was just on the brush. I haven't added any yet. It quickly bubbled it up, but it didn't take too long, as you can see, before it started turning more white and less bubbly. We'll give it a little bit of time. I don't think this is a finicky soap. I think I could add water if I knew how much this soap usually took. I could add it right now if I wanted. But since this started out with a little bit of kind of some structure to it, I wanted to make sure that I worked it for a little bit first. And because this is High Mountain White brush that seems to also have a longer loft like the Wipped Dog one, I chose my larger lather bowl instead of the Pereira that I've been testing out lately. Okay, now as you can see, it's kind of firm. You can see it's holding its shape very easily. It's even kind of brittle almost, with a little bit of wiggle to it, very light kind of wiggle. So let's start adding some water. See if we can watch it turn into something creamy. Now, if I recall, maybe Gold Docs and Dr. Dittmar both were like the same company at one point, and then they split up. I remember something now, and maybe it's just with Gold Docs and somebody else, or maybe it was Dr. Dittmar and somebody else, but that's in my brain. And so maybe a while back, this was a soap that was also under another name, that kind of thing. I don't know if they. Yeah, you can see it looks wetter now. It doesn't look all dry like before. And that was with just the addition of a little bit of water. Been a little bit chilly today. I think this is the first cold downturn of the winter, of the late fall. I don't know. It's the middle of October. I guess it's firmly fall, right? It's not winter. It's looking nice. Huh. Obviously, with this kind of quantity that we're seeing, I did not have to load for 45 seconds. I did it just in case, and I didn't need to. Oh yeah, there's some fluidity, some elasticity there. I better stop adding water. Wow, that's pretty good. Let's just give it a good mix and just use that and see how it goes. I think my friend Michael Friedberg is another fan of these types of European hard soaps. Gold Docs is another one I highly recommend. Similar in size as the one I showed you here. And they have a few different scents. None of them are super strong, but Just a nice little hard puck. It's been around for a long time and has good performance. And that lather looks very nice, getting a little glossier than it was before. Now that I have mixed it, let's see if it's that same level of elastic as it was a minute ago. Ah, see, look, it's firmed up a little bit. So obviously there were some wet spots earlier. And that's what you do. That's why it's good to get a good mix. I'm going to add a little bit more water. Looking good. All right, let's try that guy out. Looks like I have about 5 passes there. These big high mountain white knots with their long lofts really provide lots of room to hold the lather. Boy, I think they would just be a really perfect option if I were a face latherer, because there's just so much room in those knots for the lather to hold and stay and be ready for the next pass. Let me get my face wet. Ooh, that water is chilly and refreshing. If I ever end up with a shave here in these next few months where my skin feels rough and a little agitated and needs some soothing, this cool water is a great way to calm that down. Razor burn, that sort of thing. Cool water is a wonderful way to address that. So let's just kind of experiment and see what these tips give me on this Elite high mountain white knot. Now here, right now, it's kind of the center dumped out. And there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. Some brushes tend to do it, some brushes don't. I haven't really figured out the rhyme or reason. I think it's just depending on a particular lather. Some, like maybe the wetness or dryness of a lather could have something to do with it. I know that a really wet lather can do that sometimes, but this is definitely not an overly wet lather. So all you have to do is kind of work it for a little bit until if you do end up experiencing that void in the middle, and then you have stuff on the outside, and so you can just then take your brush like that with that hollowed out thing in the middle and put it right on top of a blob, and there you go. You're kind of cycling the lather through your brush, and it will likely gradually make its way through the bristles to the outer edge, and you'll likely have a center again that kind of needs to be refilled. And that's what happens a lot of times when you are a scrubber like me, with the circles, with the back and forth where you're splaying the brush. That's the kind of feel that I enjoy about the whole shaving process. If you just do the back and forth motions, of course, you're not, the brush shape is very different, and you're not creating that void in the middle. And so it's also a good way to kind of move the lather around and circulate it through your brush. And when you have that void, you switch to painting for a few strokes, and then that void kind of disappears for a second. This lather is looking very nice. It feels nice and creamy on my face. This brush feels very dense. It's not as easy splaying as due to density, as the Stirling and as the Wipped Dog. So it's denser than both other high mountain whites. The tips are nice and soft though, but this is soft with density, where the Stirling feels more plush because it's soft without as much density, kind of with average density, where this one kind of feels almost high density. All right, so now we've worked it in long enough, I think. So we'll just kind of lay down the path, the layer on. And I didn't have to add any water to that. I think that ended up pretty much perfect. Let's feel that lather. Kind of a thin slickness because it's well hydrated. And this one will give you a good creamy feel if you back off on the hydration, but I just like the razor slickness more than the finger slickness. And so if I have to compromise, then I'll give the razor the priority, and the glide, give that priority every time. All right, PermaSharp Super Stainless, not PermaSharp, 7 o'clock, Gillette 7 o'clock, Super Stainless, green packaging. We'll see. I believe he's done really well for me in a lot of different razors. And so let's see how he does in the Karve AA open comb base plate here. It's not perfectly smooth, but a lot of the strokes are very comfortable and you don't really feel very much blade edge at all. There are some strokes where you feel like maybe it's maybe it's not cutting as easily as maybe some other blades. If you've got kind of neck creases like me, man, make sure that when you go down to those creases, don't cross them parallel with the crease. Don't let your blade edge be parallel with your crease, because, man, I almost always end up with a little bit of razor burn right there as it goes down into the valley, but mainly as it's coming out. It's just too much of a bite right there. And so that's why if you were looking carefully, you might have seen me with a slight tweak, slight angle to the blade so that one corner would cross over the crease first. That was easy and smooth. Then if I see how that feels here. That's a nice slick lather. This may be one next time I might take a little drier. So maybe what I'll do now is maybe dab my face dry. But see, right now, even this just a little bit is giving me some nice soapy slickness all around. And now we'll kind of charge up our brush again, get that lather in there. And yeah, actually in use, like I was saying, I don't really mind this handle at all. Because now if I was just holding it with all the fingers here in this saddle part, I don't think I'd like it very much. But I'm able to use the finger to be across right here, and then the thumb here, and then the other one can be up forward, being a stabilizing kind of force there, and that's working well. That is a nice big comfy knot. Boy, just finished with the second pass applying it with lather, and I've got 3-4 passes there in the bowl. So yeah, I overshot it by just a little bit. Cross grain now. This is a good blade with this razor. Now that it did take off a good bit of stubble that first pass. It may not have been just sliding through those hairs as easily as a few other blades out there for me. But it's I wouldn't be unhappy if I was if I was stuck somewhere in an airport with this blade for a month or something like that. Of course, that's just how it is with my skin. It might be a little different with yours. You might find this to be just an amazing blade that works really well for you. Oh yeah, nice creamy feel there. Yeah, we're taking the stubble down very nicely with this one. And this is a lather that's, I think, in the high performance category in terms of all the hydration that's in it. I wouldn't want to take this one any wetter. I bet it would probably hold up all right. And that's a mark of a good soap, is you can really pile in the water and it still does a nice slick job. I might back this off a little bit in the future if I maybe not take it quite so elastic, in my memory, if I can remember all that elasticity I was looking at, maybe back it off just a hair. Have a little bit of light creaminess with it in addition to the slickness. And the brush continues to feel nice. So yeah, I didn't remember this brush as being quite so dense, but after comparing it to the Wipped Dog and the Stirling, it was very easy to see that. Wonderful soft tips. Fairly easy to splay, but I don't know if you've ever had a really dense brush. Sometimes they just don't move as easily across your face because all those hairs have to kind of move out of the way, that sort of thing. And so I did experience that a little bit with this, but when you think about the softness of the bristles, and it's a really pleasurable brush. And so I guess if you're looking at comfort, then put aside the Wipped Dog. At least the Wipped Dog as it stands with about the three shaves I've done with it. It could get softer with some uses, but I think we could probably safely say put it aside if you're going for comfort. Focus on the Elite or the Stirling High Mountain White, or the two that I've had experience with. And if you want kind of an easier, lighter movement with just the Ultra in plush comfort, then I think the Stirling is a great way to go. If you're not often thinking of floppiness as a bad thing, but I don't really think of it as floppy, but there are probably people who do. But if you want a little bit more that nice softness, but with some more density to it, then the Elite is a great way to go. And the cool thing is, the Stirling brush probably costs as much as the Elite knot, because Elite knots are kind of pricey, but they're good quality, right? Now, in this case, I don't think it's an issue of Stirling quality versus Elite quality. They're just different tools. And one has more density than the other one. And that's probably why it costs a little bit more, because it involves more hairs. But I think it's less, if someone were to come to me and say, which is the better one, I totally would not say, well, this one costs more, so it must be better. No, they're both wonderfully soft, comfortable, luxurious knots that you're going to have a great shaves with. And one's more dense than the other. And there you go. Pick whichever one you think fits you the best. So there's that. I did dab my face dry with a towel, so that's kind of what the lather looks like when it is, when that's happened to it. I believe I like the 7 o'clock black better than this green. And I think, in my mind, I remember being kind of impressed by the yellows. And so maybe the yellow is nicer than this one too, but I'd have to do a side-by-side to know for sure. And man, yeah, this open comb razor you do feel that edge. They need to make a AAA open comb. Got a nice shave today. That is very funny, because now that I kind of get a good rinse, and I actually feel a few spots around my neck where there was a little bit of razor burn, just little touches of it, where I think if I had had better technique of maybe pulling my skin just a little bit, it would have been fine. But other blades are better that I don't have to pull my skin to get a nice result. And so this blade maybe is a little more touchy. I don't really know how to describe it, to where maybe sometimes it was cutting a little too close. Could it be sharper? Maybe the edge may be more fragile, perhaps, and that sometimes maybe it cut a little too much in certain areas. And then to have it do that in a very mild plate, I think that speaks to something about the blade. Now let's just take a look at the closeness here. I think I got a nice close shave. I think others have done better in this razor. The other two that I've done, maybe the Gillette Platinum was better. And so I definitely think there are other blades. So I might put this one on the back seat as far as my preferences, especially for this razor. I think it might have done better in other razors. But yeah, that's interesting. So he's a little touchy for me. Might be great for you, but for me, the Super Stainless from Gillette 7 o'clock. And why not do the Dunshire balm that I've done a lot while I'm here. That way I don't have to carry balms and stuff back and forth. And it's nice, and the family likes it. Works well. It's a light one, so it doesn't conflict with anything. I like to, because sometimes a balm can give me irritation if I apply it in a dry way or against the grain. And so that's why you see me working with the grain as I smooth the balm around. And there we go. As usual for Stirling, you might see a little bit of whiteness, but that'll be gone and it'll be absorbed in just a few minutes. Very nice. How much lather did we end up making? You know, this is kind of the margin that I might like to have after a shave. Maybe a little bit less, but I'm not going to complain about this. I bet I could squeeze 2 shaves out of this, but you know, one generous pass, 2 shaves, I meant 2 passes. One generous pass for sure. So, a really enjoyable lather. Traditional soapy scent. Nothing special about the scent here. You're not going to buy this one because of the scent. Hopefully this is a soap that doesn't cost very much at all in like European pharmacies and stores and that sort of thing, and I think that would be fully justified. Now this one, when it was dry, and it was kind of small because it was more focused in because I've been carrying it around in a travel tube, but this is the display after a good shave, and it's pretty big, as you can see, and it's not a big knot. This is nowhere near a 28. Boy, it's got to be maybe a 24. I don't think it's a 26, and it is a generous big old knot, but as you can see, it has got lots of tips in there. You can even kind of make it look even bigger if you want. But and then when it was small like this, man, you could really feel the backbone. But then you don't really feel it on your face when the lather is in place. It was easy to splay, but that density did add a little bit more backbone to it. And so I'd say maybe medium backbone for this one. On the medium spectrum, where the Stirling is more on the lighter backbone spectrum. And then also in terms of the backbone, the Wipped Dog is going to be on the lighter side as well. Both of those were not high density knots, and so with a nice long loft, they had easy backbone, comfortable, really nice brush. And how much water did we use for this shave, for all that lather that we made? Not a lot, guys. 17 milliliters. Not a lot. It looked like I was pouring a lot in there as I went, but just 17. That's not bad at all. So the Performance, not ultra top tier, but a really nice slick soap, and it's going to last a long time being a hard soap. And if you like mild scents and a traditional soapy kind of mild scent, then in a hard soap, then this is a solid choice for you. So there we go. Fun to play around with that one, and all the pieces that I got to play around with today. So there we go. I hope there's something in here to help you out with your shave. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. Good night.